This is the bug, where dropship designs often are very, very similar because they assume the same scientific solutions. This one is different. Let's explore how the work of Steve Burg, as well as odd and more original sources of inspiration, can help you create something new and different. Welcome to Technouveau. My name is Rasmus. I'm an art director and concept designer with 20 years of professional games development experience, and I'm on a mission to inspire and empower your creativity by discussing concept design, design thinking, and all the processes that surround that craft. If you want to support the channel, I have a Patreon with a few different levels of interest, and on technouveau.net you can find 3D models, merch, and things like that. So if you're interested in the craft of design, if you're interested in discussing design, thinking, for film, TV, computer games, things like that, maybe this is the place for you. So if we just jump straight into Blender, here we have the bug, and as I mentioned, it should be quite clear why it's called like that. This is an off-world landing craft, and as I mentioned, it's really inspired by Steve Burg's design from the Alien movie. So let's start by taking a look at that. So to be clear, I didn't reference this design when I did the bug, but for sure, this design lived in my subconscious. That is absolutely certain. So I think what Steve did in this design was super fresh. It's basically just like a floaty pontoon. It's almost like a service ship that you use when you build bridges and whatnot in the real world. And he applied this to a spaceship design. I think there's a bunch of questions in terms of re-entry and heat shielding and all kinds of things, but I don't mind. I just buy the hardcore utilitarian flavor of this design. So having it be this flat plate, basically, I just think it's a really, really fresh take, and I think it brought a fresh level of surprising credibility to the Alien universe. You can see he even did some really, really detailed interiors. That is super awesome. Yeah, so this design, I guess you could say it lives rent-free in my mind. One of my favorite things about it is that it is modular, so you can see the deck he has made here has these little tying points similar to an aircraft carrier, and he is illustrating here, I'm guessing, that you can tie down different parts. You can imagine the cockpit being placed differently, being rewired in through some sort of electrical slot to control the tug or the aircraft, just like the crane here and all these different elements. So just a super, super awesome design, and obviously a really clean rendering here that manages to explain to you what the concept is in great detail without going overboard, and at the same time without under-delivering in terms of detailing. So super, super awesome design. Thanks for the inspiration, Steve. You're a champ. And so taking that concept of a rather flat surface with which you can transport what do you say, stuff around. What I did was, as I mentioned, I didn't reference Steve's design, but I knew I wanted something surprising and something that had that brutal industrial nature of Steve's design. And so the flat bed is certainly shared by my design. And you know, this is really where the fairy inspiration comes from, where we have this frame, and you can imagine several objects parked in here, right? And also the drive-in, the entry from the back and the exit from the front. The fact that it's just an open-ended shape here gives it a really sort of blunt, simplistic core design, which I think is so stupidly simple that I find it kind of enjoyable. Today's video is brought to you by Skillshare, the largest online learning community for creatives, by creatives. It features thousands of creative classes in countless categories ranging from beginner to advanced. categories include illustration, design, animation, film, photography, and even entrepreneurship. But chances are that if you're watching my videos, maybe you'd be interested in learning Blender. Let's check out what Skillshare can teach you about Blender. You can see that plenty of different things already, right? Retro anime, 3D vaporwave animation, a deep dive into texturing. Let's take a look at this one. Here you see all the different chapters of this particular video, making it easy for you to just dive in where you want to go. And if we go back to the search here, Blender, you can see the learning paths here, which is certainly a lot easier than flicking around on YouTube trying to find a series of good cohesive lessons. So here Derek, for instance, will take us through designing our first 3D object all the way to sculpting, lighting materials, and bringing the 3D renders to life. So Skillshare makes it super easy to go in and find programs that really work for you. So if I'm trying to learn some DaVinci, let's see what's in here. So a bunch of color grading, which I can certainly use because my color grading is all over the place. And I've been diving into DaVinci, and I just want to show you one of the things that I learned recently was similar to Photoshop, adjustment layers. In Photoshop, we have adjustment clips here, and you can see I'm playing with it, and I just want to show you a little example here. So rather than editing my clip of yours truly here talking, I can adjust the adjustment clip. Let's say I want to do a zoom, and so rather than cutting this clip up here and putting it up on multiple layers and all that stuff, I can simply put the zoom on this adjustment clip and it'll zoom in and out of it. Super awesome. You can also do color grading, for instance, and zooming here. So you can see you can stack these adjustment layers on top of your clips in a non-destructive way, making it much easier to batch edit and batch color grade and all that stuff in DaVinci. Super awesome. So yeah, maybe you should jump in and learn some Blender, and I'll jump in and learn some DaVinci. Anyway, the first 500 people to click the QR code or the link in the description gets 1 month free trial of Skillshare. So you can get started today. Cool, back to the video. Because it has this open center, it has prominent shapes to the sides, because you've got to have some sort of shape to the craft. And I was using these parts from the Modelshop Greebles pack that I did with Big, Medium, Small, and it's built from the pack for the pack, so to speak. So with this build here, I'm showing you firstly what the pack is capable of, as well as supplying you who buy it with some shapes that you can use in your own visualizations to get started real quick. So that's the body, and it's almost like these shapes here, I gave it sort of a, a belly almost on either side, and then rather quickly I added the legs to it, which I think is really what gives the ship its name, right? You can see I haven't really resolved the design details. These pistons simply just stick into the fuselage, but I think that's fine for what I was trying to do here. But the important thing about these is I wish I had watched one of Ian's tutorials on actually setting up the rig for this, because I would want to see this in motion. I would want to see this land and have these shock absorbers and pneumatics really take a rough landing. That would be super, super awesome. So what I like about these feet here is that it's both a hyper rough and tough suspension sort of experience, that you can imagine this land really heavily and really crunchily. And the other thing is that we have these rocket bells down below. So it combines a few really low-tech ideas, pistons and rocket bells, things like that, really, really simplistic, into an experience that is quite animalistic. So as I did these big feet with the boosters and landing pad, landing feet skids here, and that chunky experience, rather quickly I distributed them across the body, and I was experimenting with the quad landing and whatnot, and rather quickly I ended up giving it these 6 legs. And then from there it sort of just took off and got a life of its own. And after the legs and this here belly sort of emerged, I knew I wanted to give it a head. And so, similar to the ferries we saw in the intro, you might remember driving underneath the bridge, right? And actually a bridge that can serve both directions of the ship. Usually that's how they work, these little vehicle ferries. But having a head that's elevated, maybe this is where I was conscious about Steve's design, because Steve has this little command module bridge on one side, which I tried on this one as well. And you know, the ones of you who are familiar with my work, you know that I love an offset cockpit. But here, to steer clear of the direct similarities with Steve's design, I decided to go with a central head, and of course giving it different measuring devices and whatnot up front, including antennas. It feels like an ant head almost, right? Where the wind, whoops, where, let me see, what am I doing here? Where the windows become eyes, right? I'm fooling around here. Silly me. Now, I'm rotating around an empty that I'm moving around, and of course, because I don't have, you know, the selections and all that stuff visible, I can't see what I'm doing. Anyway, so here, this ant-like head, it's almost a little cute. There are some things about scale of the interior of this cockpit and the seats and the little BMS guy we have up here, which isn't entirely resolved. And again, I'm okay with that because I'm mostly playing with ideas here. But I see this as I mentioned, as a head of an ant or something, and I really feel like, let's imagine we have this craft in an IP of some sort. I really imagine that we could build a relationship to it. Right, if this one comes and picks you up in a pinch, or if you rely on it to save your butt in difficult times, and maybe even it being downed and incapacitated in some shape or form, I think you would get a little sad, because I think it has that element of cute. So the last thing about the design is, of course, these monstrous engines here in the back. And again, I think I have a subconscious referencing of ships, maybe even of big landing crafts, military landing crafts, like the oh man, what's the name of them? You know, the pillowy craft that can sort of beach up on the sand and things like that. Hovercrafts, yes, thank you, brain. Haven't failed me completely yet, but we're getting closer, it seems. Anyway, hovercraft engines, which of course is these big fans usually, but here I have engines like this, and as usual I play with the notion of some sort of intake, maybe atmospheric, maybe some science fiction mumbo jumbo, and at the end we have these floral leaf-like what do you say, rocket and jet beam vector panel. I'm sorry, my English is failing me today. I must be tired. But that gives it, again, it's almost like a floral cutie pie flavor here at the end. So I think it's a really, really, really brutal ship in many respects. And of course it has that Greebles, brutalistic, chaotic vibe that I normally go for when I design ships. And certainly when I design ships with objects from the Greebles pack. But I think it has a much more cutesy character than what I normally do. I mean, calling this one cutesy might be a stretch, because it is quite brutal for sure, but I do think it's a little cute. So if we unhide some elements here, I want to come back to this truck in a second. Here I have it in a... I'm doing it again. Here I have it in a landing configuration where you can imagine it coming in, blasting in for a landing, and you can imagine these feet clawing and grasping for the ground as it sets down, as you saw in Jama's pics in the intro. Thanks, Jama, for lending me those, by the way. Where you can imagine this guy coming in and landing like a bee on a leaf or something, and you can really imagine that organic sensibility and flavor of this beast. If I were good at doing, let's say, organic animation, and if I was good at setting up the rig for these legs, I would certainly do that. That feels way beyond my skills at this point, but hey, maybe I can learn. maybe I can learn on a certain online platform. But anyway, yeah, I guess that's an idea for the future. I would certainly love to see this guy move. That would be a lot of fun. So considering what this craft might transport, here I have a lunar truck or a space truck or something. Basically just sort of an 80s take on space exploration, where it sort of has a naive sensibility to it. It has these big rubber tracks and 70s truck markings and a bit of graffiti and whatnot on it. And this is certainly an aesthetic I want to get back to and play with some more. Actually, the light is a little bit too bright here. I don't like that. Let's bring it down a bit. No, that was... okay, wrong way. What am I doing here? Too much. 1. There we go. Yeah, so this little guy here certainly has an aesthetic that I find interesting. So it has that super naive feeling, like I mentioned, and a junkiness that I like, and of course an airlock. It's quite sloppy with the door here, texturing wise, but this airlock that I've stolen from the pack and from some of my other designs. But I think giving it this here surfacing and this here treatment makes it really sort of naive in a toy-like kind of way, and I feel like a child again when I see this. This is a bit of a rough version with windows missing, and I have a more refined version elsewhere, but I like this particular version of this truck, and certainly we'll do a video on that and dive into the design of this one at some point. In a sense, the bug ship here, as I mentioned, being inspired by Steve's design, it has sort of an alien flavor to it, and I would say for the little truck here, I don't even know what IP that might feel like. I think it feels like it's its own thing, and as I mentioned, I want to do more of these designs. Actually, I have some in the bank that I can start assembling into a universe. Maybe that'll be like a Moonbase 2000 or something like that. It has that retro flavor, as I mentioned. Sorry, I'm digressing. So where this ship feels like it could belong in an alien universe, I think it's too cute for that. I think having a anthropomorphization of a ship to this degree wouldn't fit that universe. So not quite sure. And I would say the truck and this landing craft could maybe be in the same universe, provided the landing craft got a different paint treatment. Maybe that's an idea. Yeah, anyway, some thoughts to consider. I just wanted to show you guys this landing craft that I think is a little cute, and some of the thoughts that I have in terms of where this design came from and where I want to take it, and how and if it's connected to this little truck that we'll talk about another time. Yeah, let's look at some renders. So that's a little off-world dropship there, and in some ways feeling quite Steve Burg inspired alien, and in some respects being too cutesy for that. So yeah, if you want to see more alien related content, you can check out this video where I talk about a ship that's designed to fit in between the first Alien movie and the second Alien movie, Aliens. And if you want to learn how to use the Big Museum Assetpack, you can check out this video over here. So that's it for today. See you next time.